Hi. So I watched the Land of the Lost episodes Shung the Terrible and Jungle Girl, and I watched them in that order. That is the order in which they aired, and I'm going to talk about them in that order and see if you can spot why uh, it is widely speculated. At least this is what I read on Wikipedia, that these two episodes might not have actually been conceived in this order and or filmed in this order, but for some reason they were aired in this order. So, Shung the Terrible. Shung the Terrible is, I suppose, the main antagonist in the Land of the Lost. There's a bunch of characters that come in and out. Um, Obviously, Scarface the T-Rex is a big antagonist, but Shung is the dangerous one. And the Slee Stacks are the malicious ones. T-Rex is just doing what animals do. Um, and the Slee Stacks, from what I remember, I did see the Will Ferrell movie, and I think that movie hews closer to the 70s version of Land of the Lost than this one. And so the Slee Stacks, I think, were just kind of beasts. And I think the Pakuni were as well. What did I write there? All right. Can't really read it. But they are, and of course, Shung sounds kind of like Spung. And like the Spung, the Slee Stacks are lizard creatures, pointy-faced lizard creatures with deep voices. But the Warlord Shank and the other Spung, they have makeup and over the parts of their over their mouth and stuff, but and then prosthetics on their heads. But the mouths move with their lines. The Shung and the Slee Stacks, they just seem to be wearing big, stiff masks, and the mouths and the lines don't always line up. And the eyes also the Spung have their own eyes, the actors' eyes that move like real eyes, and then the Spung have eyes more like Tasha's eyes. So kind of cheaper costume villains, lower budget, I suppose, but I guess they blew the whole budget on the dinosaurs, which is understandable. And like I said, they convinced me as a little kid. They probably convinced a lot of little kids. And I mentioned the visuals, but not now, but back then, the sounds they made, the roars, also, to me, as a little kid, that sounded like what a dinosaur. Now I expect, because of Jurassic Park, I expect them to sound like more like a horn, or a lion, or a bear's roar, or if I'm on the Erie Canal walking under a bridge and a car's going by overhead on that bridge, I expect it to sound like that. But if it's a dinosaur. But back then, that was part of the illusion. So let me see if I remember this. The the Slee Stacks are hunting for food for Shung. The Nim and Keeg are the minions, and Shung is the leader. And we find out that the Slee Stacks had apparently lived on the surface, and then they they were an advanced civilization. They overpolluted, and they were driven underground, and apparently that was not too long ago, but there's no real evidence of an overpolluted situation, and obviously the dinosaurs are doing fine. And there was one more thing. And they know about humans. They seem to know about humans. And the Slee Stacks killed Stink's parents. They caught a lot of Pakuni, and they killed a lot of them, including Stink's parents, which I don't know how old Stink is. Comes across as kind of a child, or at least a teenager like Kevin. But so the timeline seems a little weird with that, especially because there's no evidence of Slee Stack society above ground, or recently abandoned or not. Small nitpicky thing, but still something to talk about on YouTube, I suppose. And then these three, Shung, Nim, and Keeg, are criminals who were sentenced back to the surface, and they seem to be doing fine. So I guess the surface now has had time to recover. All the Slee Stacks could come back. Maybe they don't want to for some reason. But that's the history of them. And the story is pretty much that while out hunting for food for Shung, Nim and Keeg find the truck, and they think the truck is an animal. It's a big, like they catching iguanas and small things, and they see this truck just sitting there. They think it's a big animal. Then they realize it is a machine, and they don't figure out how to turn it on, but they do accidentally put it into neutral or drive, and it rolls right to their front door. And Tasha is in the back of the truck. And Tasha is a much better, more sumptuous meal than the iguana. More along the lines of, I suppose, what the Pakuni used to be. So that's the premise, and then the porters realize this, and they follow. I guess they maybe follow the tire tracks of the truck, and they find the temple, and Krista and Stink are going by to visit the porters. They're friends now, and they go by they ride a triceratops called Princess. But the porters aren't at the treehouse, and so Krista and Stink track them down to the temple, and then help them get Tasha back. But various combinations of people are trapped. Shung has this crystal dagger that has... Shung seems to be slightly psychic because he can pick up if there are people invading the temple, the cave. That's a nice looking cave, so it's a temple. And his dagger seems to be able to control people's minds, but I'm not sure to what extent, because it seems more along the lines of it just stops them from doing something he doesn't want to do, then makes them do things. He captures Tom and Kevin. He doesn't find Annie, who then she later finds Krista and Stink, who help defeat the Slee Stacks. And he wants Kevin and Tom to fix up the truck, teach them how to use it, cook Tasha, all those sorts of things. It's a very basic introduction to the Slee Stacks, and ultimately the porters manage to trick the Slee Stacks into what seems to be like a closet. They put the pot that Shung tosses bones into when he's done eating, over a central crystal. There's a lot of crystals in this show, and the central crystal seems to, I guess, it lights the room, so it goes dark, and they trick the Slee Stacks into this closet, and then the crystal, Shung makes the crystal glow, and it destroys the door, so the crystal can do that too. And but the lesson of the episode, I wrote down, the lesson is don't feel guilt about things that are beyond your control. Annie feels guilty for having left Tasha in the truck, which resulted in her getting captured. And her father keeps telling her, don't feel guilty about that. You didn't know that these things existed and they were going to steal the truck. But he keeps being reminded that he is constantly talking about getting them trapped in the land of the lost, and has to be reminded, you didn't know that the road was going to open up and swallow us, and that there was going to be a portal, and we were going to go through the portal and end up in the dinosaur land. So, wish I could read what I wrote there. Because it looks, I know that, cave collapse? The cave collapses. I get, because of the crystal. In order to try to trap the humans, Shung uses the crystal to make the cave collapse. And obviously that doesn't trap them because they do appear later on. I have a Shung action figure, I'm pretty sure. I definitely do. I think I have Annie and Krista and Stink. I might have the truck. All of these things are in closets in my parents' house, but arranged so that I can find them. Jungle Girl is the next episode that aired. So it starts with scenes. The porters and Tasha are asleep in the treehouse, and the moon's doing something weird, and Tasha is kind of behaving a little strangely. First thing I wrote down, though, was the scenes of them sleeping in the treehouse, big open windows, sounds of nature, remind me of summertime as a kid, maybe because just the everything is more pronounced. Senses are more pronounced as a kid, and in the summertime when I started to be aware of my surroundings, and the windows would be open, and I could hear nature and stuff. I liked it, and also it reminds me of going camping and traveling in the summer to Michigan and all that sort of thing. So that's a sense memory that I associate with this show. I don't remember it specifically when I'm not watching the show, but it did happen. Um, and Then we also find out that this thing affects Stink and Krista's Triceratops princess. But overnight, before it really takes effect, we find out Krista's talking to Stink, and she's suspicious of the porters, and their presence reminds her that she's not like Stink. She's not a Pakuni like him, and she might not feel, or she feels out of place in the world, and she might be more appropriately, it might be, she belongs with the porters, possibly. She doesn't feel like she does because she's been with Stink for so long, or she doesn't feel like she should, but she feels like she does. And this inspires Stink to sneak into the treehouse because he and Krista don't quite trust the porters yet, and they want to sneak around and keep an eye on them, but steer clear of them. Stink uses the camera and records the porters talking about finding Krista because they think that Krista might know something about how to get out of the Land of the Lost because she's obviously human like them and got in. There's a nice, interesting, again, low budget but still cool for a kid's show in the early 90s point of view shot of when Krista is riding the Triceratops and the camera is looking down through the horns of the Triceratops as it kind of goes. And speaking of dinosaurs and special effects, there's when the dinosaurs, the whole idea of this episode is that the moons are aligning and it's going to drive the dinosaurs and Stink. And there are very few dinosaurs apparently, but it's going to drive them all to dive over a cliff, which is did I write it down? Valley of Death. Yeah. So it drives all the non-sentient. Well, Stink is sentient. Well, all the animals, inferior creatures, except Stink's not that inferior. I don't know. Anything not explicitly human is driven to mass suicide. I guess every so often the Pakuni have a word for it. I didn't write that word down, but it's how Krista knows what's going on. It's a mass suicide, and it makes one wonder how there's anybody left. Did the Sleestacks get, if Stink gets affected, did the Sleestacks get affected? And of course Princess is affected. And and when Princess is affected and Stink is affected, it drives Krista, who has been resistant to seek out the porters, drives her to go to the porters and together they search for all the dinosaurs. Let's see. They use the truck ultimately, and there's a weird kind of, the truck is kind of a Fast and the Furious moment. They speed the truck past the dinosaurs all the way to the cliff that the dinosaurs are going to stampede over, and then does this turn with the truck like in an action movie so that the truck is then facing the dinosaurs, and then they bombard the dinosaurs with sounds. And that is how they prevent the mass suicide of Scarface and the dinosaurs. Big noises, I wrote down. And I did write down one of the Pakuni words, akubane, which is how they say hello and goodbye, perhaps. It's their aloha. Yes, so Eclipse, mass suicide of dinosaurs, but, it all works out in the end. In the middle, while they're trying to figure it out, Krista does, she finds the porters, she tells them the jungle's not safe because she knows what's going on. The dinosaurs are turning into werewolf-type things, and they're going crazy. So she takes them to her cave, where they find things like, I guess, a Giants baseball. Is Giants baseball? I think Giants are football. I'm going to go with football. But they find a Giants hat, and they find photographs. And so these are from Krista's past life. And so they start to ask her, do you remember this life? Do you remember how you got here? Can you get us free of here? And she doesn't want to talk about it, but she says she has dreams where that seem to be from a past life that resembles that, but she doesn't want to think about it. And so this is more development for her, and but it ultimately leads to her becoming friends with the Porters. And like I said, they save the dinosaurs, and the title Jungle Girl refers to her. And I wrote down also Island of the Blue Dolphins, which is, of course, the Scott Odell novel for young readers. And this episode just reminded me of it because it suggests that Krista has been there for a long time and has started to forget who she really is, even as she has formed a new identity. And that's similar to Karana in Island of the Blue Dolphins, who is, her tribe is evacuated from an island off the coast of California, but she's left behind and she lives there alone for 32 years before she's found and taken to the mainland. And that is based on a real woman whose name is not known. She was known as Juana Maria at the mission where she was brought in California when she was found. But for 32 years, she lived on the island of San Nicolas off the coast of California and survived. So that's where I'm going to leave it for that. Did you spot the reasons why these episodes possibly might have originally been intended to air in a different order? Let me know in the comments if you want to. Anyway, as Krista would say, peace and love.